Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into the incredibly elegant, microscopic architecture of the nephron. We're going to see exactly how this vital system maintains the precise chemical balance that, well, literally keeps us alive. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with some truly staggering math. Every single day, your body filters roughly 180 liters of fluid. To put that into perspective, that's almost 50 gallons. It's a huge amount. Yet on average, you only excrete about 1.5 liters of final waste. So, where does the rest of it go? How does the body know precisely what to throw away and what to frantically pull back in? That incredible life-saving contrast is exactly what we're going to unravel today.
Section 1. Meet your kidneys, the ultimate recycling plant.
So you've got two kidneys, right? And together they make up a tiny, tiny fraction of your body weight, just about 0.5%. But despite being so physically small, they are absolutely greedy for blood. They demand roughly 20% of your resting cardiac output. That means about 1,200 milliliters of blood is rushing through them every single minute. They need this massive volume because, frankly, they are doing some serious heavy lifting. Blood just plunges into the kidney tissue through the renal artery, bringing that massive volume in to be processed, while the renal vein eventually carries it away. And between that artery and vein, your kidney is working non-stop. It's controlling fluid volume, getting rid of waste, and keeping your acid-base balance perfectly in check. It even acts as an endocrine organ, secreting hormones like EPO, renin, and active vitamin D. It's really the whole shebang.
Moving on to Section 2. The nephron filtration station, a microscopic journey. Inside each kidney, you've got about 1 million of these tiny, 4-centimeter-long nephrons. Think of the nephron as having two main functional elements. First up, there's Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. Their job is to filter massive amounts of plasma directly from the blood. Second, there's the long, twisting renal tubule, which takes all that freshly filtered fluid and painstakingly modifies it into final urine as it flows down toward the collecting duct.
Right, so how does that initial filtration actually happen? Let's zoom right into Bowman's capsule. If you were standing inside Bowman's space, looking at the outside of the glomerular blood capillaries, you'd see they're entirely wrapped up in these highly specialized cells called podocytes. They have these large central cell bodies and intricate tentacle-like extensions called foot processes that reach out and wrap tightly around the vessels.
Now, think of it like interlocking fingers. The foot processes of different podocytes interlace with one another, creating literal filtration slits. It's a microscopic sieve. Fluid, ions, and small molecules are pushed out of the capillary and forced to squeeze through these tiny slits. Meanwhile, your red blood cells and larger proteins are structurally blocked, keeping them safely inside the bloodstream where they belong. The fluid that actually manages to squeeze through those slits is called glomerular filtrate, and your body produces it at a blazing fast rate of 120 milliliters per minute. It basically has the exact same composition as plasma, just without the cells and proteins. But here's the catch. Losing fluid at 120 milliliters a minute would lead to fatal dehydration in a matter of hours. No way we could survive that. So, by the time that fluid actually exits the end of the tubule, the final urine flow has dropped all the way down to just 1 milliliter per minute.
Which brings us to Section 3. Reabsorption and secretion explained, refining the fluid.
Getting from that massive 120 milliliter flood down to a highly concentrated trickle of just 1 milliliter requires two opposing forces. The first is reabsorption. Think of this as the ultimate rescue mission. It's the movement of substances from inside the tubular lumen, which is the fluid destined to become urine, back into the peritubular capillaries, returning to your bloodstream. It's the absolutely vital process of reclaiming the good stuff, like water, glucose, and essential ions.
The second, opposing force is secretion. This is the exact opposite. It's the movement of substances from the peritubular plasma back into the tubular lumen. Let's say there's stubborn waste or excess ions still floating around in the blood that completely bypass that first filtration at the glomerulus. Secretion actively grabs those molecules out of the bloodstream and forces them into the tubule for final disposal.
Honestly, the efficiency of this system is just mind-blowing. Let's look at the numbers. Out of 180 liters of water filtered every single day, 188.5 liters are reabsorbed. That is a 99.2% rescue rate. Sodium, 99.4% reabsorbed. And glucose, 800 millimoles filtered and exactly 800 millimoles reabsorbed. 100%. The body effectively dumps out the entire chemical contents of its plasma and then painstakingly reclaims every single necessary molecule. Section 4. Active and passive transport.
the power behind the pump. Okay, so moving massive quantities of molecules like that isn't free. It requires microscopic physics and a ton of cellular energy. To move stuff across the tubule wall from an area of low concentration to high concentration, the cell has to fight against the electrochemical gradient. Primary active transport does this head-on. It literally burns cellular fuel, ATP, to physically pump ions across the membrane. But your nephrons are smart. They also rely on secondary active transport. This is where the natural movement of one substance falling down its concentration gradient creates kinetic energy. A carrier protein, like a symporter or antiporter, essentially hitches a ride on that momentum to transport another substance against its gradient. Pretty clever, right?
Section 5. The proximal convoluted tubule. Form dictates function.
Now, the vast majority of this intense cellular labor actually happens right at the beginning, in the very first segment after Bowman's capsule, the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT for short. And the histology of the PCT is engineered perfectly for the job. The tubule is lined with a single layer of epithelial cells to minimize the distance molecules have to travel. On the inside, there's an extensive brush border. These microscopic folds create a massive surface area for rapid, high-volume exchange. And because active transport requires so much power, these cells are just packed full of mitochondria, constantly churning out the ATP needed to run all those pumps.
Because it's built this way, the proximal convoluted tubule is an absolute beast. It does the lion's share of the heavy lifting. Roughly 65 to 70% of the entire filtered load is reabsorbed right here in this initial segment. In fact, it reclaims almost 100% of your filtered glucose and amino acids before the fluid even has a chance to travel to the rest of the nephron.
So, we've seen how beautifully orchestrated this whole system is, from the massive volume of blood initially diverted to the kidneys, down to the intricate, interlacing filtration slits of the podocytes, all the way to the mitochondria powering the rescue of every last drop of glucose. But this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If our nephrons have to work this intensely, depending on perfectly interlocked microscopic cell membranes to maintain our chemical balance, what happens to the entire body when those delicate structures get damaged by disease or high blood pressure? How quickly does this incredible recycling plant turn into a biological crisis? The exquisite precision of the nephron is exactly why preserving those microscopic structures is absolutely vital to our survival. Keep that in mind, and thanks for joining me on this microscopic journey.